Well, it looks like I forgot to record the kirtan. So we'll just go right into the Mangalacharana because it's already late. Om Nama Srishtham Manum Api Shachi Putram Atra Swarupam Rupam Tasyagrajam Urupurim Mathurim Goshtavatim Radha Kundam Giribaram Aho Radhika Madhavasham Prapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Sri Gurum Tanmatosmi. Yasya Brahmeti Sangyam Kvachidapi Nigame Yati Chinmatra Satta Pyangsho Yasyankshakai Svai Vibhavati Vashayan Eva Mayam Pumangscha Ekang Yasyaiva Rupam Vilasati Parama Vyomni Narayanakyam Sa Sri Krishno Vidhattam Swayamiha Bhagavan Prema Tat Pada Bhajan Gaura Shyama Rucho Jvalabhiramalaya Akshnor Vilaso Savai Nrityanti Bhirashesha Madana Kala Vaidagdhya Digdhatmabhi Anyonya Priyata Sudha Parimala Stomodmadabi Sada Radha Madhava Madhuri Birabitas Chittam Mamakram Yatam. Guru Shastram Shraddha Ruchir Anugati Siddhir Iti Me Yadetat Tat Sarvam Charana Kamalam Rajatiyayo Kripa Madhvi Kena Snapita Nayanam Bhojayugalo Sada Radha Krishna Asharanagati Tau Mamagati Ali Paripalita Prabalita Sanandamalokita Pratyasham Sumana Phalodaya Vidho Samodama Modita Vrindaranya Bhuvi Prakasha Madhura Sarvati Shai Sriya Radha Madhavayoh Pramodayatu Mam Ulalasa Kalpadrumaha Radha Madhavayoh Pramodayatu Mam Ulalasa Kalpadrumaha Jayati Jayati Nama Nandarupam Murare Viramita nija dharma dhyana pujadiyatnam kathamapi sakridatam muktidam praninam yat paramamamritamekam jivanam bhushanam me paramamamritamekam jivanam bhushanam me. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Sri Radhe. So let's share the screen. Where are we going here? I hope I have the thing out somewhere. Oh my Lord, the file is closed. Okay, let's find the file. There we go. Oh, I've already forgotten where we are. Any more text resolve? Radhe, Radhe, Radhe. Ah, here we are. All right. Let's go on. So, Atta Eva Chatukshlokyam Rahasya Shabdena Sa Evokta Atra Vibhinna Shabda Yatra Yatra Paramapurusha. Oops, here I go again. Wherever the Paramapurusha Artha is being spoken of in the Bhagavatam. So here in the Chatuk Shloki, the word Rahasya. Okay, so let's take a look at that because I'm just going to, this is an important verse. Don't tell me I've closed that one also. Na 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 na, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rahasya, Rahasya, Rahasya. Here we are. Okay, there we see it. Let's take a closer look. We're not going to do it all, but here the words. So here it was the Rahasyam is in the first verse. Right, so this is not actually one of the Chatuk Shloki. This is the preamble to the Chatuk Shloki. It's kind of funny that Chatuk Shloki actually has how many verses? 7 verses, right? 30 to 36. So the first one is this: Jnanam paramaguhya mame yad vijnana samanvitam sarahasyam tad angam cha grhana gaditam maya. And so the explanation, this was all given, where was this given now? This was all spoken of before, when he, I think in Bhagavata Sandarbha, where the Chatuk Shloki is being spoken of. So where the Chatuk Shloki is spoken of, so there it's explained that Jnanam Paramaguhyam, and then Vijnana Samanvitam. So there's Jnanam, Vijnanam, Sarahasyam, and Tadangam. So these are the Sambandha Avidheya. So the Sarahasyam Tad Angam Cha, that represents the Sarahasyam, that represents the Parama Purushartha, Grihana Gaditang Maya. I'm going to speak it, so take it from me. Grihana. There's Grihana. So we're talking about Grihana today. Oh, it's Grihana, did it? Oh, geez. I think I forgot. I think I did a mistake here. Okay, let's stop that now. Let's go back. Did I do that? I don't think I even shared the screen properly. Oh, well, there we go. Let's share the screen. Yeah, there was a shared the screen. So, Jnanam Paramaguhyam Me Yad Vijnana Samanvitam Sarahasyam Tadangam Cha Grihana Gaditang Maya. So, there's 4 verses. There's the Chatuk Shloki, right? So, the first one, Jnanam. The second one is Vijnana Samanvitam. The third one is Sarahasyam. And the fourth one is Tadangam. Right? So, the Tadangam, that represents the Abhideya. Yavanaham yatha bhavo yadrupa gunakarmakaha tataiva tattva vijnanam astute madanugrahat. So I think this is Yavan aham yatha bhavo yadrupa gunakarmakam tataiva tattva vijnanam astute madanugrahat. So this is a promise here. Krishna is saying that I will reveal to you, and by my mercy I will give you the proper knowledge, this vijnanam of who I am, what is my nature, what is my extent, what are my forms and my qualities and my activities. So this is what you should. So he's giving him a blessing, the astute madanugrahat, may you have all these things by my mercy. And then ahameva samevagre nanyadyat sadasat param paschadaham yadetatscha yovashishyeta sosmyaham. So there's your nice verse. Right? Aham, I existed before the creation. It was when there was nothing that existed. It was all sadasat param. Only thing that was there was beyond dualities of existence and non-existence, or vyakta and avyakta. So paschadaham, so after this creation, after the creation came into being, that was me. It was all just me. And afterwards, what will remain, that will also be me. So riteartham, therefore, riteartham yat pratiyeta na pratiyeta chatmani tad vidyad atmano mayam yatha bhaso yatha tamaha. So anything that appears to be without meaning or purpose. Riteartham yat pratiyeta, but does not reveal the self. And does not appear in the Atma. You should know that that is Maya, that is the Atma's illusion, and that is the Paramatma's illusion. That is the Supreme Being's illusory power. Yatha abhasa and yatha tamaha. So there's a lot to be said about those two. But anyway, abhasa, like a shadow, or like darkness. So just like the sun. The non-sun is the shadow or the darkness. The reflection, abhasa is the shadow. So yatha mahanti bhutani bhuteshu chavacheshvanu pravishtanya pravishtani tatateshu nateshvaham etavadeva jigyasyam tattva jigyasunatmanaha Anvaya vyatirekabhyam yatsyat sarvatra sarvada. So it really sounds like a Jnana Marga. It's kind of interesting, these 4 verses, and they have to be explained a lot by the Vaishnavas to come out of the feeling that it's just another expression of Advaitavada. Anyway, the last verse, Etan matam samatishta paramena samadhina Bhavan kalpa vikalpeshu navimuhyati karhichit. So if you just follow these commands or follow this, what I've told you here, and you meditate on them in the deepest samadhi, then throughout the ages, you will never be bewildered. All right, so let's give a new share here. Let's go back to the other text. Whoops. All right. Therefore, in the 4 nutshell verses of the Bhagavatam, the word rahasya has been also interpreted as priti. So that's a pretty stretch, I would say. But at any rate, that's the point. The jiva is doing that everywhere. So wherever it sounds like it's not Vyasa's samadhi, like what did Vyasa see in his samadhi? If he makes the supreme truth something different from that, then there's a problem. We have to have consistency. So maybe that's wrong to look for consistency in the Bhagavatam, but it's certainly when Jiva Goswami, he wants to be consistent. So he's saying now that all these, he told us that Priti, from other Pramānas, Priti is the ultimate goal of the Bhagavatam. Priti is Sukham, that Priti is Tattva Sakshatkara. Tattva Sakshatkara is Bhagavat Sakshatkara. You can't have Bhagavat Sakshatkara without Priti. So therefore, Priti is the Parama Purushartha. And if anybody tells you anything different, well, they're just saying something different, but they mean the same thing. The Bhagavatam, it's saying one thing, but sometimes it says something else, either for different adhikaris, right? For different people. People are of different, the thing is that people can take different things from the same story. So the Bhagavatam wants to get you both going and coming. So it depends what in the all 3 aspects of Tattva, whether it's Brahma, Paramatma, or Bhagavan, they're all being accepted. The only thing is, it depends on which position you're standing in, and that makes you see the other aspects of Tattva in a different way. So if you're situated in Brahman realization, then Bhagavan realization looks different to you from the Brahman realization, and vice versa. Okay, so Saiva cha tritiya shlokartha tvena Bhagavat Sandarbhe vispashti kritasi. So in the explanation of the third of these 4 verses, so now I'm just saying third verse, which was the third verse. So what was it, third verse? The word rahasya, this was clearly shown, Saiva cha tritiya shlokartha tvena. No, that's not right. Oh, you see, this is not right. I get it. Sorry, but I have to be thinking about making corrections. All right, so it says this was shown, it's not, but this was also shown, or Priti was also shown to be the meaning of the third verse. So now what was the third verse here? So the third verse was 1, 2, 3. Aham eva samevagre. Is that the third verse? Aham eva samevagre. No. Nanya jyad sadasat param. Paschadaham yadetachcha yovashishyeta sosmyaham. Or is it Yatha Mahanti Bhutani Bhuteshu Chavacheshvanu Pravishtanya pravishtani tatate shunate shwaham. Okay, I'm not going to look it up. I'm going to look it up. I'll look it up after class, and then I'll report back to you in the Bhagavata Sandarbha. I'd have to go and look and see that passage again. Righto. So Bhagavata Sandarbha is exactly where these Chatuk Shloki has been spoken of. Tadevam. Tadevam. So now he's coming to a conclusion. Tadevam Srimat Priter Eva Apavargatvaina Parama Bhagavad Anugrahamayatvam Shri Bhāgavata Sravanafalatvam Purushartheshu Tasyahak Paramatva Sadhanaya Darshitam. All right, so he's saying here, so this is the conclusion here, or a preliminary conclusion. Darshitam, it has been shown. What has been shown? It has been shown that Srimat Priter, that Priti, Eva, because it is apavarga. All right, so now why? We talk about Mukti and we talk about Priti. All right, so Jiva Goswami is equating, he's saying that Mukti is equal to Priti, because wherever it says Mukti, that means Priti. But Priti is more than Mukti. So Priti takes on those names. Why? Why is Priti Mukti? What makes Priti worthy of the name Mukti? So he says, first of all, that it was called Apavarga, because it is Apavarga, because it's free from the material condition. So Parama Bhagavat Anugrahamayatvam, that means if you're liberated from the material condition, that means that God has been merciful to you. So that's the first thing that's being shown by the word apavarga. And the other words also, right? And then the second thing is Sri Bhāgavata Shravana Falatvam. And it's also been stated to be the goal or the fruit, the ultimate purpose of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. So all of this was shown in order to establish that Priti amongst the Purusharthas is supreme. Tathaiva Sri Narada Akshepa Dvara Shikshitavangs Cha Tat Sanghitam Avir Bhavishyantam Sri Vyasam Yatha. So this is now coming back to the story of Vyasa Dev. So now Vyasa Dev, he says, so Tataiva, so in that way, Narada, by his Akshepa. So Akshepa is kind of a, an Akshepa, how would you say that? I see Akshepa is not even translated here. Well, akshepa here means that he was, angry or he was chastising, he was criticizing Vyasadeva. When he spoke to him honestly, Vyasadeva is there lamenting. So Narada Muni has to come and tell him off. So in this way, it has been shown that because Priti alone is liberation, apavarga, it is the supreme grace of Bhagavan and the end result achieved by hearing Srimad-Bhagavatam. By so stating that it is liberation, it establishes that it is the ultimate goal of human life. Well, I mean, I like the way I did it just now better, because it was the purpose. Yes, it was. Oh, yes. Well, it was shown by so stating that it is liberation. It establishes that it is the ultimate goal of life. No, that is part of what is being shown. All right. Well, I like the way I did it better. I think I'll go back and change that one also. So let's just make a marker here. I'll put a, what shall we put? We'll put a, let's put something here. Oh, we don't, just let's put in a, let's put in a dingbat of some kind. A dingbat. Ah, God. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. All right. So in now the second sentence, Tataiva Sri Narada Akshepa Dwara. So he left that out here. So Sri Narada also instructed Vyasa, who would later, oh, I see, well, would later compile the Srimad-Bhagavatam while holding him responsible for propagating materialism. All right, so that's what he's translated, Akshepa Dwara. So Akshepa Dwara, this is, so he's doing it a little bit, he's taking it one step further. And so maybe we should, I don't usually like to go that far. Anyway, so, but that was the idea by the Akshepa. Well, you look, when you read the verse, then you'll know. Yatha dharmadayas-chartha muni varyanukirtitah natatha vasudevasya mahima hyanuvarnita. Yatha dharmadayas-chartha muni varyanukirtitah natata vasudevasya mahima anuvarnitaha. O best of the sages, you have not described the glories of Vasudeva in the way you have repeatedly praised the other human pursuits, such as dharma. Cha shabdo api arthe. Right, so when necessary, sometimes say that cha, so very good. Not dharmadayas chartaha. Well, the difference between cha and api means also, right? Or even. So usually when they say cha api arthe means even. So even dharma, etc. So what does that mean, even? That means even though you did a good thing, by talking about dharma, artha, kama, moksha, you did some benefit for the human race, but you didn't glorify Vasudeva in the same way. So that's why he's saying cha shabdo api arthe. So this is a sentence you see, if you're following commentaries, you might see this quite frequently. This sentence or something like it. Mahimanuvarnanam tata priti udbodhanam bhavet ityashayena evam uktam. So now if you still haven't gotten the point, the word mahima, vasudevasya mahima, right? So he says the word mahima anuvarnanam, right? So it was mahima hyanuvarnitaha. So mahima anuvarnanam. So this mahimanu varnanam is tat priti udbodhanam bhavet. So what happens is from the glorification or from the repeated explanation or description of Vasudeva's glories, you will develop love for him. You'll get priti for him. So that is the intention of saying Mahimanu Varnanam. Right? Because it's not, the Mahimanu Varnanam is not the Purushartha. The Purushartha is Priti. So the Mahimanu Varnanam is a means to Priti. And it's also an expression of Priti. So it's not purely, it's not purely a sadhana, but it's also the sadhya. So what does he say? The word cha, and, is in the sense of even, In other words, even the other human pursuits, such as dharma. So the point there is that even though there are such the other pursuits, even though you did do a good thing by describing those, you didn't talk about Priti, you didn't talk about Krishna's Mahima, and therefore nobody will get Priti for Krishna. If no one has love for Krishna, then it's all wasted. It's all useless. All right, let's see what the commentary says. Babaji Maharaj. I bow down to Babaji Maharaj. Sri Jiva Goswami continues to explain that the intention of Srimad-Bhagavatam is in Priti and not in Mukti or any of the other well-known Purusharthas. In Tattva-sandarbha. All right, so the intention of Srimad-Bhagavatam. So that's the point. He wants to show the intention of the Bhagavatam. That's the first thing he does in each, well, that's basically the Bhagavata Sandarbha. That's what the Bhagavata Sandarbha is. The Bhagavata Sandarbha is finding what is the actual intention of the Bhagavatam. So this is what you have to do. You have to, like, this is exactly the same what they do with Vedanta. What is the Vedanta Sutra and the Vedanta Bhashya, the Shariraka Bhashya, the other Bhashyas of the Vedanta? They take all these different disparate statements that seem to be in contrary. Even the Vedanta Sutra itself is taking disparate statements from the Upanishads. And then it's trying to resolve conflicts between the different statements. So that's exactly what Jiva Goswami is doing with the Bhagavatam. He's trying to resolve, and it's the word that is used expressly in the Vedanta Sutra. So in a sense, you can see the thread of the Vedanta that connects the Vedanta Sutra with the Srimad-Bhagavatam. And just like the Vedanta Sutra can be interpreted in various different ways, the Srimad-Bhagavatam can also be interpreted in various different ways. And it's the job of a particular commentator to extract the meaning that makes the best sense to him. And by so doing, he has to explain the other verses that seem to contradict what he says and show which meaning is subordinate to the other meaning. So that's called samanvaya. So what's nice about samanvaya, the word samanvaya, right? Samanvaya means, giving a rationale to everything. You have to give a rationale to Brahma and to Paramatma and to Bhagavan. You have to give a rationale to Advaitavad as well as to Dvaitavad. But samanvaya, you do it in such a way that you present it in a way that properly establishes everything in its place. You can't just say everything's the same, because it's not the same, right? So if everything is the same in the sense that in the Gita, Krishna says, Ye yatha mam prapadyante tanstataiva bhajamyaham mama vartmanu vartante manusyaha partha sarvasya. So everybody's following one path. No matter which culture, which language, which world, which, whatever their cultural values or whatever, there's only one existence. And that's the existence of God. And everybody's playing some part of that. So everybody is in God's world. There's nowhere else to go. You can't go or be anywhere else. So in that sense, everyone is equal. And by equal, I mean that everybody is equally sacred. Everybody has equal value because they're playing a part in God's creation. Or that's one of the reasons, at least, because they're part of God's energy. They're part and parcel of God. So therefore they're to be loved unconditionally, just like God is. But that doesn't mean that you don't see the taratamya. You don't see the distinctions that are there. You don't see the hierarchies that are there. You don't see the certain values are superior to other values. So the Srimad-Bhagavatam shows that Priti is the ultimate goal. It puts everything else into the proper place. And it does so in a way similar to the way that Vedanta does. You have paramarthic, you have a vyavaharic, you have pratibhasika satya. There are different levels of truth. So Sri Jiva Goswami continues to explain that the intention of Srimad-Bhagavatam is in Priti and not in Mukti or any of the other well-known Purusharthas. So therefore, whenever it appears to contradict, you have to find some kind of samanvaya. You have to find a resolution to the contradictions. And you have to do it in a way that gives validity or gives value to each one of those things. It puts it in its proper place and assigns it the proper value. So if something is of no value, right, then that's also to be recognized. But generally speaking, there's nothing that is of no value. In Prīti-sandarbha, so here I've given a different number. So we have a numbering problem here. So in the verse, in the Sanskrit, I said 29, and here it says 30. And it also says following, so I must have looked it up. If I looked it up, then this is probably right. Nevertheless, it has to be verified. So in Prīti-sandarbha, he had analyzed the experience of Vyasa in Samadhi. So we talked about that already. I think, didn't we? Or maybe I talked about it in the Sanskrit class. I talked about it in the Sanskrit class. We went and read the whole series of verses. So learn Sanskrit and go listen to the Sanskrit class. So that was about the Vyasa Samadhi. So I was just talking about Vyasa Samadhi. So the two things that are established right at the very beginning here, Priti Sandarbha, in the very first Anuccheda. And later on, he's also going to talk about it way down later when he's talking about, Nigama Kalpa Taror. These two important things. One is Vyasa's Samadhi. And the second thing is Shukadev's Hridayam. It says Shukadevasya Hridayam. Badarayani, the son of Vyasa. So these two people are both involved very much according to the Bhagavatam. These two, Vyasa and Shukadeva, are both playing a pivotal role in the creation and manifestation, and then the marketing, let's say, of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. So now both of those people have particular important characteristics. So the first one was Vyasa Samadhi. So now we just saw Narada was chastising, he was berating. That's the word I want for actually, but berating. Now I'm going to go back and write that berating here. Let me just say, where it was berating, right? That was the verse up here. Berating, I like that. I was looking for the. All right. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Right. So in Prīti-sandarbha, he had analyzed the experience of Vyasa in Samadhi. So this is the beginning of the 7th chapter of the Bhagavatam in the first canto, which was the inspiration that led to the composition of Srimad-Bhagavatam. So this is right after he'd received all this chastisement from Narada. So there in verse 1.77, so this was quoted, Yasyang vai shruyamanayam. So we did that, I think we did that at the beginning. Yasyang vai sruyamana. There you go. Yasyang vai sruyamana. So I must have talked about it in this class because there it is. Right? So yasyang vai sruyamanayam Krishne paramapurushe bhakti utpadyate pungsang shoka moha bhaya paha. There you go. Right? So if you listen to the Bhagavatam, so there the Bhagavatam is saying, so what is the Bhagavatam? There in verse 1.77, it is stated that by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, bhakti becomes manifest. So it's the fruit. Right? At the end of this Anuccheda, we saw that the reason that we're talking about Bhagavata as being Bhagavata, the fruit of the Bhagavatam, is to establish it as the Parama Purushartha. So he says, indeed. So the full verse of that, so we need to, the full translation of that verse that I just quoted. You know, indeed, in the very act of receptively and attentively hearing this Srimad Bhagavatam, bhakti to Sri Krishna, the Supreme Person, self-manifests in a person's heart, dispelling lamentation, illusion, and fear. So while explaining this verse in Tattva-sandarbha 47, you see there's numbers in the Tattva-sandarbha are screwed up, I'll tell you. But while explaining this verse in Tattva-sandarbha 47, Srila Jiva Goswami glosses the word bhakti as prema, a synonym for priti. The reason for this, he explains, is that hearing Srimad Bhagavatam is the sadhana bhakti, and its outcome is the sadhya bhakti or priti. If this was Vyasa's experience, and Srimad Bhagavatam is the outcome of that experience, then the purpose of the Srimad Bhagavatam must be priti. This is further supported by the analysis of the heart of Shukadeva Muni, Vyasadeva's son, the first student and the first speaker of Srimad Bhagavatam. About him, Sutta Goswami said, I offer my obeisances unto Srila Vyasadeva's son, Sri Shuka, who destroys all sins, although his consciousness was completely filled with the bliss of self-realization, and though he had consequently cast off all other feelings and thoughts, his essence was irresistibly drawn by the beautiful pastimes of Lord Ajita, Krishna. Out of compassion, he thus delineated this Purāṇa, which illumines reality. Tattva Deepam. I got to say the Sanskrit for this one again. Let's check it out. Swa Sukha Nibrita Chetas Tad Vyudastanya Bhavopi Ajita Ruchira Lila Krishta Sarastadiyam Vyatanuta Kripaya Yas Tattva Deepam Purāṇam Tamakila Vrijinignam Vyasa Sunum Natosmi. This is written in Malini Chanda, 6 shorts, 2 longs, very, very recognizable, right? Swasukha Nibrita Chetas Tadvyudastanya Bhavo Pyajita Ruchira Lila Krishta Sarastadiyam Vyatanuta Kripayayas Tattva Deepam Purāṇam Tad Akila Vrijinagnam Vyasa Sunum Natosmi. So, while explaining this verse, Sri Jiva Goswami writes, similarly, the ultimate attainment for conscious beings, which is known as the stage of final completion, Prayojana Tattva, is the ecstasy of love for Krishna, which leads to the sort of spiritual attraction for him that Sri Shukadeva experienced. So that's very nice. Right? It leads to the sort of spiritual attraction for him that Sri Shukadeva experienced. So you can see here that just like when we chant the first verse, so we're not Mangalacharanam, we chant the very first, the verse at the beginning of the Tattva Sandarbha. So you can see that in the Tattva, in the introduction to the Tattva Sandarbha provides an introduction for the whole 6 Sandarbhas, and it also tells us that the Prayojan Tattva is Prema, and it uses these 2 bedrock examples, Vyasa Samadhi and Shukadev's Hridaya. So Vyasa, while introducing the subject matter of Srimad-Bhagavatam in the very opening verses of the book, also states that when a pure-hearted person simply desires to hear the Bhagavatam, then Ishvara becomes attracted to his or her heart. God cannot be attracted to anything but Priti. So this is something that we're going to see in the Prīti-sandarbha. It's one of the bedrock principles. There I use the word bedrock a second time. One of the bedrock principles or definitions of Priti. This is something that we have to know about Priti. Very much so. Because Priti is the manifestation of the Hladini potency of the Swarup Shakti. Krishna cannot be attracted to Jiva Ananda. Didn't we just see that also? He's saying that Jiva Ananda is inferior to Krishna's own Swarupa Ananda and his own Leela Ananda. So Krishna is complete in himself and has no desires to fulfill, yet he becomes controlled by the love of his devotee. Such being the case, it is to be inferred that when a pure-hearted person wishes to hear Srimad-Bhagavatam, his or her heart becomes imbued with the Priti that attracts God. That certainly affirms the above conclusion that Priti is the Prayojan of Srimad-Bhagavatam, the purpose. Prayojana means purpose. If this is true, then Priti must also be the Prayojan of the 4-verse Srimad-Bhagavatam. Okay, so this is the logic, but this is the way that logic works, right? So you have to explain the anomalies. So if there appears to be an anomaly, like we just went through the Chatushloki, didn't say anything about Krishna there, didn't say anything about Bhakti there, didn't say anything about Sakya, Dasya, Vatsalya, Madhur, didn't say anything about any of that stuff. It only gave us Tattva. So it has to be interpreted, it has to be extracted to keep it consistent with Vyasa Samadhi and with Shukadeva's inner feeling. So, and this indeed was demonstrated in Bhagavat Sandarbha, where this has been explained as the meaning of the secret or rahasya in the 3rd of the 4 verses. Okay, so that's the 3rd. Well, it's not the 3rd of the 4 verses. That's incorrect, right? We just showed that wasn't the 3rd. It's the 3rd verse. It's in the 1st verse. Okay, there's something wrong here. From all this analysis of the heart of Vyasa and of Shukadeva, from the study of the introductory part of Srimad-Bhagavatam and the 4-verse Srimad-Bhagavatam, it is established beyond any doubt that the only prayojana of Srimad-Bhagavatam is Priti. Indeed, it was Narada's instruction to Vyasa to propagate Priti that led to its composition. Vyasa felt despondency in his heart that even though he had done immense literary work for the welfare of humanity, he could not ascertain the cause Vyasa felt despondency here. Something's missing here. Okay, I gotta fix that. So see how after even going through this text, I don't know how many times, believe me, I go through these many times, and still a gross error like this could still be there. Anyway, that's why I'm not the last. It gives me a little bit of confidence to know that I'm not the last person in the chain of production here. So he could not ascertain the cause. Yeah, that's a circular sentence there. I got to fix that. It was Narada who pointed out the lacuna in his works was the absence of Priti and asked him to compile a book that corrected this deficiency. Taking Narada's advice, Vyasa sat in devotional samadhi and experienced the tattva, along with the sambandha, abhideya, and prayojana. Then he manifested Srimad-Bhagavatam with Priti as the only prayojana. Well, I think that there would be a lot to discuss here further, because all the things that Jiva Goswami says are all worth analysis on their own. But I think that it can only really be done if we go back to the Bhagavata Sandarbha and to the Tattva Sandarbha and analyze the arguments that are made there. But I think that Babaji maybe goes a little too far, because he say that can you draw the conclusion from the Chatuk Shloki that Rahasya means Priti? Or can you draw the conclusion that from the Chatuk Shloki that the Bhagavatam has Priti as its prayojan? That would be rather difficult to do from the words themselves if one did not interpret them in accordance with Vyasa Samadhi and in accordance with Shukadev's heart. So that was the lesson for today. We're just going to continue reading this book, and we're going to continue just to enjoy it. What happened there? Oh, the picture is gone. Okay, let me do kirtan. I say video. Where's the video? The camera is, because we're in the darkness. Excuse me, my friends, the lights are off. And where are my cartels? I don't have a lamp with me, so. All right, here, no. All right, there they are. Why is there no pictures? Because we're in the darkness, my friends. We're having a lot of power outages because we've been having tons of rain. So it seems that the rain is worse for the electricity than the heat. Sarve bhavantu sukinaha, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhaved, purnam madhah purnam idam, purnat purnam udachyate, purnasya purnam adaya, purnam eva vashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. Jai Jai Sri Radhe, Jai Jai Sri Radhe, Jai Jai Sri Radhe Shyam. Jai Jai Radhe Krishna Govinda, Jai Jai Radhe Krishna Govinda, Radhe Govinda, Radhe Govinda, Radhe Govinda, Radhe Govinda, Radhe Govinda, Jai Jai Radhe Krishna Govinda, Jai Jai Radhe Krishna Govinda, Jai Jai Shyam Sundar Madana Mohan Vrindavana Chandra, Jai Jai Radha Ramana Rasi Hari, Shri Gokulananda, Jai Jai Radha Kanta Radha Vinod, Shri Radha Govinda, Jai Jai Raseshwari Vinodini, Bhanukula Chandra Jai Jai Lalita Vishakha Adi Jata Sakhi Vrinda Jai Jai Sri Rupa Manjari Adi Manjari Ananga Jai Jai Purnamasi Kundalata Jaya Vira Brinda Tomra Kripa Kori Deo He Jugal Charanara Vinda Deo Jugal Charanara Vinda Deo Jugal Charanara Vinda Deo Jugal Charanara Vinda Jai Jai Radhe Krishna Govinda Jai Jai Radhe Krishna Govinda Radhe Govinda Radhe Govinda Radhe Govinda Radhe Govinda Radhe Govinda Radhe Govinda Jai Jai Radhe Krishna Govinda Jai Jai Radhe Krishna Govinda Jai Jai Sri Sri Guru Charanavinda ki Jai 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 Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai 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 Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki Jai 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 Sri Jiva Goswami Prabhupada ki Jai 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 Sat-Sandarbha ki Jai 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 Sri Vrindavan Dham ki Jai 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 Tulsi Maharani ki Jai Jai Go Mata ki Jai 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 Sri Harinama Sankirtan ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol Jai Jai Sri Radhe Shyam